Welcome to the HReSource podcast, a series designed specifically for business owners and executives who want to better understand people to increase productivity and performance. In this episode of HReSource, which I'm very excited to bring you, we meet Sahar Hashemi. Sahar was the co-founder of Coffee Republic and another brand that you might have heard of, Skinny Candy. There's quite a story behind the forming of Coffee Republic, and not least of which, the journey that Sahar herself took from being a lawyer and discovering she had a particular talent for growing and starting and growing businesses, and quite a talent that is. Since the launch of Coffee Republic, Sahar has gone on to help many, many businesses across the country and across the world with her insights into entrepreneurship. She's particularly passionate about seeing an increase in the number of women entrepreneurs, and not least of which in the UK, because currently we're falling behind other nations. Awarded an OBE for her work for the economy and charities in 2012, Sahar's work is widespread, not least of which a recent co-chairing of a task force to help growing SMEs. This is a podcast that I think you're really going to get something out of. So grab yourself your favorite beverage. For me, it's a double espresso Americano, and enjoy the chat, the conversation, and the insights that have been shared in this 40 or so minute podcast. You'll enjoy. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome yet another female entrepreneur and pioneering entrepreneur to the HReSource podcast. We've had Dame Stephanie Shirley, we've had the wonderful Amanda Thompson, and now it's Sahar Hashemi. Welcome, Sahar.
Hi, David.
Well, anybody who knows Sahar will know that this is a lady who's got a track record of building very interesting businesses, breaking new ground, and we're going to touch into that quite some detail today. But also we have a connection. We've both worked with lawyers, and actually Sahar is a qualified solicitor. I'm not sure if she's been practicing recently, but that was always the career route. Could you just perhaps kick things off for us, Sahar, by talking a little bit about that passion, that thing that started off? Because I think in reading your book, you felt that was where you wanted to be. That was your career choice.
I mean, my career choice being a child of the 80s, really, entrepreneurship was never an option. I mean, I didn't know any entrepreneurs, didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs. No one had their own business. When I was growing up in the 80s, you sort of went and got a job. And if you had a profession, that was even better. And my parents were very keen for my brother and I to have a profession, to have a sort of something that we could rely on. And so for me, it was just being a lawyer was something I wanted. I think maybe watching those TV programs in the 80s, what are they called? Legal Legals and LA Law and stuff was an influence. I had a bit of a
Ally McBeal and all those sort of.
Ally McBeal, exactly.
McBeal, I remember that one.
Notion of lawyers. I mean, can you imagine there were programs, actually, but you do have them now with Suits, but exactly. So that really got me with thinking I wanted to be a lawyer. So, entrepreneurship was never an option for me. And I studied law at university, and then I went and got a job from a firm that actually rejected me 3 times until I finally got the job because I really wanted to work for them. And that was it. That was meant to be my career.
This is Fred Chumley.
Fred Chumley, yes, exactly, because they had an office, I remember, in Paris and in Monaco. And in your sort of when you did your articles, your training, they would send you to either Paris or Monte Carlo. So that was rather an appealing option. So
you're thinking, this is a lawyer's life. This is how it's going to be.
I'm a lawyer. But then the realization, David, that once I qualified, was that actually I wasn't a very good lawyer. So that was a sudden kind of a bit of a misstep. You think I want to be a lawyer, and then you realize actually, I was a really great article clerk, and when I was training, I actually, in fact, made the cover of all the national newspapers because I ended up serving a writ on Arthur Scargill.
I remember that.
It was with kind of. Do you remember when people exactly when
I remember that. That was you. You were the blonde.
Exactly. There was a picture of me saying mini-skirted lawyer, and then Arthur Scargill saying, and I had to go find Arthur Scargill at night, sort of, and surf him with this writ in Doncaster. So that was exciting. But once I qualified as a solicitor, and I was sort of given documents to draft, actually it just wasn't me, and I wasn't very good at it, to be honest with you. And I think I've now learned in life that if you're not enjoying something, by definition, you're not going to be good at it either. So this idea that I think we were all brought up with, us of a certain age, that enjoyment is nothing to do with what you do, is actually completely wrong, because it's actually, there's a direct correlation between if you're loving it, you're also good at it, and it's an area you should go into. And for me, just sitting there, once I was a fully qualified lawyer, drafting documents was something I absolutely hated, and I was absolutely crap at as well. So
what do you think that actually was? Do you think it's because I struggled with this. I took a role within AT&T when I was head of marketing for a division of AT&T, and they were going for ISO 9001. And for some reason, the divisional director decided that I would be the right person to manage the audit. And it's like, no. But that taught me a lesson. It was the sort of attention to detail. And latterly, working for a law firm and having to look after compliance, you learn to adapt to, and I suppose you can, if you're self-aware enough, I guess you can identify there are things that you need to sort of work on a bit harder than other bits that don't come naturally. But if the whole premise of the job, as it would be as a lawyer, which was it commercial law that you were working in?
Yeah, corporate, very, very exciting, sort of, exactly. Corporate commercial, it was a big entertainment firm. The companies were fascinating, kind of. It was all Warner Brothers and kind of really literally Apple at that time. It was amazing. All the record companies, Elton John was a client, but for some reason, I really believe actually that, we all have a reservoir of talent. We know where our talent is. Some people are great at sales, some people are people, some people love numbers, some people, and just actually understanding, really, it's a sort of process of self-discovery. That's really what I've learned about my journey, is knowing what you're good at and what you're bad at. And very much contrary to what we were told, that you've got to work on your areas of weaknesses, actually, you're much better off really finding out what you're good at and sticking mostly to those areas. And of course, nothing's ever going to be perfect. And you'll probably have to end up working 20% on areas that you're not good at, but it's really got to be the 20%, and 80% has got to be, because I really believe everyone's got something they're really good at. And I realized really came to me because had I stayed a lawyer, had I stayed a solicitor, I would have thought, actually, I'm pretty mediocre, and I would have got sort of bought into that argument that actually not everyone's amazing, but actually realizing that everyone is amazing as long as they find what they're amazing at.
They can find that thing that's going to spark their passion, their interest,
their sort of their North Star. And then your North Star is often what you're good at, which is really a whole argument that, I don't know if you listen to Professor Galloway, and the whole idea of passion, and people think they follow their passion. It's not a hobby. Passion is actually often what you're good at, is actually also your passion.
I used him quite heavily, actually, because I let's just say I didn't have the most shining of school careers. You talk about people that were good academically, and some of those entrepreneurs that are actually dropped out of school, the likes of Richard Branson. Well, I didn't quite drop out of school, but I didn't shine, shall we say. I was the guy that was
just like me. I was exactly the same.
I was creating a chess club for break times if it was raining. It was a very traditional boys' school, and I was playing poker in the middle of these guys. We were gambling, basically, effectively. And there were a few other things that went off, and little scams that I had on the sideline. I managed my way through school, not doing schoolwork really. So I didn't really expect myself to get the call from the school just before I left as CEO of a law firm to say, we'd like you to come and give our prizes at our school prize giving. I was like, really? And when I went to see them, they one of the things, the reason I'm mentioning this story is I got presented to a room full of sixth formers, co-ed as the school was then. And for me, they hadn't given me any briefing that I was supposed to be talking to them. So I had to think very quickly about how I could fill the time. These very sort of expectant, who is this guy? Who is this chap to come to talk to us? So I asked them to introduce themselves, tell me their name, and tell me what they're interested in and what they were going to do for a career if they'd made that decision. And I thought I don't know, there were 60 of them in the room. I thought maybe 20%, 10% might have an idea. Every single one of them had an idea what they wanted to do for their career. And my mind was blown. I had no idea at that age. No idea. And my view was, they've been brainwashed. This this is wrong. So I ripped up my speech for the night when I talked to the parents and the whole school, and I just talked about passion. I just talked about following your passion, following your dreams. That's what it's about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just, sorry, it sparks it off that little story. But yeah, I don't know why I was there. It brought back some sort of PTSD as well about going back to school. We won't go there. So there you were, sort of a bit disenfranchised, a bit unhappy with how things were. And then January 1993, there was a tragic event in the family, and that really was a sort of watershed moment in your story.
Yeah, exactly. My dad died January 93, and very much comfort zone. He was a real sort of corporate person. Had sort of always worked at big companies all his life, and I think suddenly that happening was almost like the shattering of the old comfort zone, and it's almost like you're sort of pushed out of the comfort zone, and that was really important because I just realized actually life is so short, and maybe the comfort zone's like an illusion. It's a sort of false sense of security. And I might as well do something I absolutely love doing. So it sort of makes you look at life because someone's like pulled the rug from under your feet, and it got me to leave the law firm. And to be honest, I wasn't very good, so I remember other people getting promoted and doing well. So I'm sure they would have.
How annoying!
They would have got rid of me had I not left anyway. So I think I preempted them kicking me out. But I then thought, actually, I never had a gap year. It had been a really difficult year, and I thought, let me take some time off and actually then go to New York where my brother Bobby was, to just kind of reevaluate things and just have a bit of a chill. And that was really when I got the idea for Coffee Republic.
So you literally you were sort of like I'm sorry about this, forgive me for the reference, like a bit of a Christopher Columbus, or if you, depending on historical reference, Vikings, you discovered the new world.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, I'd actually I'd gone I'd gone to sort of South America for like a couple of months, and then on my way back, I stopped off in New York, and that was really, when I sort of, one jet lag morning, saw those American style coffee bars, and I just thought, I can't believe we don't have this, and I saw them, but I had no intention of starting a business. I was still actually flogging that sort of lawyer dead horse, so to speak, wanting to get a job as an in-house lawyer, because my mind was still, I'm a lawyer, and therefore any job I get will be in the legal.
Maybe I don't fit in this particular role, but maybe I'm more sorted to a corporate world where I'm working for the business.
That's exactly. And I thought, actually, I remember I actually found in a file of facts my interview notes from these in-house jobs saying, I want to be closer to the fruits of my labor, and I want to be more involved in what the client does. And I wasn't actually getting any no one wanted me as their in-house lawyer, and I applied for the most like fun companies and record companies and Quaker Oats and consumer companies, and I wasn't getting any job offers really. So I couldn't understand why that was, but sometimes in life, there's sort of, you don't understand that maybe like the universe is kind of leading you down another path. Because had I got any job literally at even the most boring company as the in-house lawyer, I would have gone straight in for that job, and I would have never started Coffee Republic. And sort of, so you've got to have slight faith on what's going on, the bigger picture outside, to sort of, sort of optimist Paul Coelho way, guiding you to your North Star.
It's a mixture of things. So then there's an element of serendipity, and
sort of what's meant to be. And I mean, I had a pretty good CV, so it was really extraordinary that I didn't get the jobs. I think I was a really rubbish lawyer, as I say. But you know what I mean? I mean, you would think that someone,
I bet you would.
Someone would give me some sort of a job offer. At that point, I was really kind of scraping the barrel, but no one did, which is thank God they didn't. Yeah.
And the other partner in this, you're a close-knit family. You're a family of four. So the other sibling, your brother Bobby, he'd taken a different career path, but equally very sort of professional and financial, actually, in terms of working for people. I think, was it Lehman Brothers he was working for?
Yes, Lehman, yeah, I couldn't believe it. Yes,
and
exactly.
he had a similar sort of feeling to you, I think, about, is this really what I want to do? Is there more than this?
Yeah, that's right. And funny enough, unlike me, he'd been to business school, so he always had this dream of entrepreneurship, because when you go to business school, you read about business stories. And I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was. I mean, literally, it was not on my radar. So he always had this. So when I came back from New York and thought, oh my God, these American style coffee bars are amazing, I can't believe we haven't got them here, because I would love to go to an American style coffee bar, because I was back in London and I was used to going to them in New York, and I just couldn't believe they weren't there. that from Bobby was a light bulb that he was looking for to start his business.
He could join the dots.
He joined the dots, and I did not join the dots because I was like, actually, why doesn't someone else open it and I'll go to it?
Yeah.
So I was just the kind of consumer need, which is, I think, what women are incredible, or because the consumer economy is actually female. And so women are always missing something. Often, if you look at how women start businesses, it's because it's like an unmet personal need.
Yeah.
It's a sort of itch that is not scratched by the market, so to speak. But for my brother, it was more like actually vocationally, he wanted to become an entrepreneur. So this idea was like, well, this is it, sort of thing. And for me, it definitely wasn't it.
And one of the things that struck me in reading about this particular aspect of the sort of the very early, sort of the petri dish, you're just sort of putting the ingredients together. Things are just starting to develop in relation to the idea for Coffee Republic. Not that it had that name originally, but it was getting to that point. You had a lunch, a dinner at a Thai restaurant, and you were talking and bouncing around ideas, and that was the catalyst. That was the conversation between the two of you. Is that correct?
Exactly. We had gone like for a family dinner, and that's when I sort of said this was, a brilliant, kind of how much I missed having skinny lattes, because imagine it, kind of living in London at that time, there was actually nowhere to go in the morning. It's a really bizarre thing. Or if you went shopping and stuff, there was nowhere to stop off.
I remember. I remember I used to work in Berkeley Street and in Mayfair.
Exactly.
I was working on MoneyGram, and I'd go out at lunchtime, pay a small mortgage for a sandwich, but very little on offer.
Yeah, you go to this. You'd probably go to those old style sandwich bars, have your sandwich made, which were actually delicious.
Kiosk.
But then once you had your sandwich made, at that point there was there was nowhere to go and sit with your sandwich and a coffee. You sort of had to go back to the office, wasn't it?
Horrible polystyrene cup with a horrible badly fitted top on it, and it just burning your hand. The memories.
So there was nothing like it, and that was when when I said to my brother, he said we should do this. You and I should be the ones to bring American style coffee to the UK. And my reaction was, listen, I'm just a customer. I don't want to start a business. And I was really having none of it. And then he actually he persuaded me by telling me that he'll pay me if I did research for his business idea. And that was really when it started. So the next day I got on the Circle Line, and I got off at every single of the stops on the Circle Line. And I saw there was nothing like it. And so people talk about gaps in the market. And I suppose that really was the gap in the market that I'd seen.
So the idea and your instinct proved correct. And actually what you did was what everybody should do when they think about this, the early stages of an idea. And how many people I've come across just launch an idea into a business because they think it's a great idea, and still look around and realize there's 500,000 other people all doing the same thing. But whereas you did your research, you did the thing that I think when I look at business plans and I'm reviewing business plans, people don't do their research. And it's so valuable, so valuable. One, it reassures, it informs you, but also it can give you new ideas. It can add to that original idea, that original concept.
It's really powerful what you're saying there, David, because I believe it's got to be really subjective. So it's literally scratching your own itch. It's something you're missing in your life. Is often the genesis of an amazing business idea. I'm missing it. But it's not exactly I'm missing it, therefore I'm going to just doggedly start this business. It's okay, I'm missing it, so that's the spark. But let me go and research it and see, whether or not I'm right in missing it. What's the market? That's why it's important at that point to write a business plan, because a business plan is not just something to raise money. It's to sort your own thinking of, okay, I miss it. So let me just go and look, what's the size of the market? Who else is doing it? What are they doing in America? What are they doing in Europe? So it's very much, I think people, that they've got to go and do the research, and you've got to know the market and what you're doing back to front. You've got to know who everyone else is doing it, why, and if people are doing it, then why are you different? And exactly, like just so many businesses I see that, just because you like it, it doesn't mean it's actually a great business idea. So it's just got to fit as a business idea. And that's why thinking through it and writing a business plan and really making sure it makes sense is the first thing you've got to do.
One of the other things that really resonated with me within the book at this stage, and these conversation points about research, about business planning, about sourcing suppliers, getting your funding, these are all things where you and Bobby actively got your hat, rolled your sleeves up, and you did it. So you were informed and you understood each stage of the process, which is why plug for your book here. Anyone can do it. is a very different experience of reading a how-to book and about business building than anything else I've ever read,
Yeah.
because it's real. I'm sure there are books that speak of experiences autobiographically, but this, for me, spells it out very, very neatly, including the wonderful faxes. Do you remember the faxes?
Exactly.
The exchange between you and Bobby.
Yeah, no, I'm still sort of proud of the book, because it's kind of part, how to, part story. And the reason why I keep like iterating the same story from a long time ago is, in the story is something everyone can understand. That you can start other businesses. It's very difficult for people to get their head around them. But starting a coffee bar is a really simple business for people to get their head around. Everyone can visualize it.
Yeah.
So it's exactly, and that's why I wrote it, because it was and it was really for me, I thought, I didn't realize entrepreneurship was actually a step-by-step process. And in the book, I take people through the step-by-step process.
I think you reference something that I'm challenging myself with right now. I'm failing dismally, which is holidays. I'm just trying to find a staycation. I'm just trying to find but the planning process, the budget, where you want to go, the details that you want. Do you want Wi-Fi? Do you want parking spaces? Do you want, all of those things are in a mini way. It's planned. It's an approach. It's a structure, and you should be applying that to an awful lot of things in your life. Not least of which, if you want to set up a business, that's
David, I 100% agree with you. That's all it is, really. I remember I wanted to start a business, and I've got what you call critical path analysis, or if you call it a to-do list.
Yeah.
And literally it was like, this is the idea, and this to-do list will take me from the idea to an actual store. And I love the power of a list. I always, if I want to do something, I should make a list. I said, the coffee product list was, okay, find a site, find suppliers, get a brand, get a name, sort of find, coffee, find, it's all that actually, but it's the power in a really mundane to-do list. And people think, oh my God, like you need to go to business school. No, we do it every day, exactly as you say, for your staycation.
This is a controversial point here, but at one stage, early on in my CEO career with the law firm, I was very, very seriously considering taking an MBA. And it was just something I felt was missing.
Yes. Yeah.
I just needed to plug that piece in, because it was a real buzz around MBAs. It was around about, the noughties, into sort of like up towards 2010. And the one thing that came out of it is I went in to get to win a prize to take an MBA at Durham University. That was the prize that they were running for. I can't even remember what I had to do to enter it. I came second. So I didn't end up taking the MBA, but I got a BlackBerry.
Yeah.
I think it was a booby prize, actually. But anyway, I got the BlackBerry. And I don't think now, reflecting back, I'm missing, for some people, they're a wonderful thing. I'm sure that it informs them, and it gives them guidance, it supports them. But I probably would have been an awful student. I'm not sure I would have fitted into that mode.
Absolutely, because you can so easily learn it, and then there are other people who can kind of help you on it, but you don't necessarily need it to start. No.
Yeah. So when you're now in a situation where your business plans are in place, you're looking for getting the thing up and running, and then it's the classic situation then of the funding to get the thing going, and you've managed to work out some costings, and you realize how much it is that you need to get going.
90 grand.
£90,000 is going to make it all work for you. So please give us the money. And it's quite interesting to see how many rejections you got on the basis of what looked like to me. I mean, obviously now in hindsight, it was a great idea, because it obviously was a great idea and it worked. But for a lot of these bankers, it was nuts. And I love the one comment, it really stuck out to me, is one rejection letter referred to the fact that you can go and get a 45p cappuccino around the corner, or wherever it was. Like, yeah, great insight.
Yeah. And the other one was, oh God, these fancy coffee names you've got on that menu you've shown me, people are never going to like, iced macchiato and, double decaf. And this is very American, it's not English. Exactly. But, and I think we did really well. We saw, as you say, 19 bank managers face to face, and 19 rejected me. And I thought, my God, I'm such a hero of persistence. And I'm going to tell my story of persistence. My God, I'm persistent. And then I sort of read the story of HReSource of Starbucks, and he'd gone to 275 bank managers who said no. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm sort of, this is nothing. This is in no way legendary. So, I mean, it was nothing, our rejections, compared to what other people go through. And it's just
an awful lot of people would have stopped. They would have deflated. The rejection would have been too much for them.
Yeah, but I mean, I think I'm brave. And you think, how the hell did Howard Schultz go through 275 bank managers? I mean, that is such a level of persistence that you need. That I have to always remind myself, David, even now, in my new project, it's kind of often, people don't reply or people say no. And it's like, actually, it's very difficult when you're getting rejected to remind yourself of this. And so it's almost like I've got it like pinned on my computer just to remember that Howard Schultz got 275 rejections, or the fact that James Dyson tried 5,700 prototypes of the Dyson before we see the Dyson as it is now. So we just have to remind ourselves that great ideas get rejected, that people don't like new, that new always is met with resistance.
Absolutely right. I was only having this conversation yesterday with a good friend of mine about new and change generally within organizations.
Yeah.
You've got a second book which was recently published, Startup Forever. I know there's a piece in between the startup and the forever piece, but Startup Forever. And I love that idea too, because for me, if you're going to be an organization that's going to survive these days, you're going to have to adopt a level of dynamism and clear thinking and persistence that you would find in a startup. That you need all of that entrepreneurial flair, you need all that's creative thinking as well, which was absolutely fundamental. And it's so hard when you've got an organization, and you mention again in the book, anyone can do it, that when you got to the point where you had to bring in a management team because you were at 30 million, I think you were capped at 30 million pounds cap value, and obviously you must have been running yourselves crazy busy at that stage, killing yourselves. So you brought in an MD and a management team, and all of a sudden this corporate layer upon layer appears, and then it starts to feel like you're in a straitjacket.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, and it's something which I think a lot of business owners really feel, because when you start off, it's sort of, especially when you're new and very entrepreneurial, very sort of kitchen table, everyone you attract by definition is buying into the kitchen table thing. So they're of that startup mentality. You don't need to give them an office; they can work from anywhere. And this especially back then, where it wasn't cool to be entrepreneurial. It was almost, I can remember back in the 90s, it was just being entrepreneurial now has got this sort of cool feel to it, like the startup. But at that time, it wasn't cool. So it was just really amateur, really. And it was really, uncomfortable and insecure. It was a bit it genuinely was a zany way of working, because no one had titles. And it was like whoever could do anything was just like pitched on. And I remember we used to sit in the stores at night before we opened them properly for the first opening. And, everyone would be there, from the account to the front accountant, with different skills. And everyone just mucks in. And it was a real shock, because we were so excited to become corporate, because we thought, gosh, we've done so well. We've opened, at that time, we were I think at 30 stores by the time we got corporate people. And at that time we actually became a public company, so we were attractive to work for. So people with great CVs were, oh, this is a sort of cool company to work for. This is like making the fast growth sort of indexes and things like that. And it was just a shock of actually these people that I thought were going to be our savior were actually quite the reverse. They just brought the worst energy of, oh no, you can't do this. Oh no, you've got to have these procedures. Oh no, this can't work. And I think that's really, I just remember it's almost like silos going up. And people talk about the kind of corporate world, but I could physically, like, from one moment to the next, I could feel the soul evaporating. And instead of the soul, you had processes and systems, and that sort of bureaucracy and who reports to who. And it's all about the sort of hierarchy of pleasing your boss. Whereas before it was all about pleasing the Coffee Republic customer. Coffee Republic was stuff.
You totally lose the focus on the whole raison d'etre of why you're doing this. You started Coffee Republic on the basis of you're the customer.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's all about the customer. And it's so wonderful when you're thinking about the customer, because it's a really human thing to think about, and it's fun because everyone feels they can make a difference. But as soon as you're thinking about, okay, my numbers, and I'm going to make sure my boss is pleased with my numbers, so maybe I could get ahead, it's just actually quite a kind of, it's a boring existence. And then the paradox is, when you do that, you step away from the customer, and actually your numbers really are going to get much better if you focus on the customer. So
Yeah.
it's almost like your focus is that sort of a rather crude saying of Jack Welch, that in a hierarchical organization, your face is to your boss and your butt is to your customer.
Yeah.
And it's so true. Whereas, you forget the customer is where your boss is not paying your salary. Ultimately, it's the customer's paying your salary. And it's just, and they're the being, and they actually ignite the soul and the best of everyone, because it becomes human to human in a way.
Yeah. Which is why something like, and this is something when I'm talking to businesses, the concept about reviews online are so important. Now, I know that there's also one thing that I find about this is there's quite a bit of gamification going on. I won't mention names, but there are some organizations that create review platforms that are their companies there for a profit. Whereas, and I know Google's a profit-driven business, but putting a review up there is pretty much open. It's not constrained and it's not managed. So I always focus on things like getting good Google reviews through and making sure that that's responded to. And even when it's a bad review, respond to it.
Yeah,
Talk to
absolutely.
your customers, find out, because it could well be that you're not doing something right.
Yeah, it's a really good zeitgeist of how you're doing, rather than a sort of mystery customer, which is why, some sort of dispassionate person that's just paid by the hour is going around just ticking the boxes. I mean, that's good to see what you've been doing so far, but sometimes by looking at those, it's a really good insight into what's really going on.
Yeah, and a warning sign. So with where you are and where we've got to with the Coffee Republic story, it got to the point where you just decided that it's not for you, that almost the entrepreneur was no longer required.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the sort of point of, and I think a lot of people listening who've got their own businesses, a sort of fatigue sets in. You've been doing it, it's relentless. And, I meet so many entrepreneurs who are in that same state, business owners who are like, oh God, I just want to get rid of it. It's like kind of, I just want to, oh my God, I just can't do this, because it is really 24/7, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
There's a combination of the tiredness, and then there's a combination of actually being told at that time that actually entrepreneurial is a phase you grow out of. It's like, and it's dangerous if you stay in the startup phase. And a wise company grows out of it and hires corporate people, because now you're a big company and therefore you should run it like a big company. And it was just slightly sort of at that time, it was with kind of almost sort of little girls, sort of slightly, when the kind of grown-ups come in, well done, you started the business, and all the passion you have, was good, well done, it helped you start the business, but it's actually not useful now, it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
And we need to set process and systems in and turn this fully corporate to run. And we did that, and we believed in that. And we gave the company, beautiful company on a plate, to corporates to run. Someone, from a big corporate company became CEO. He said, if I become the CEO, at a salary probably 4 times what Bobby and I got together. But I don't want you guys around, because I think you'll be disruptive. Your influence will be disruptive, because I'm running a proper company and you guys are too like. And I remember he sort of packed the contents of my desk and sent them home to me, so that we never go back to the office again, so he can run it. And all I can say is, we used to still go, and we actually loved the company. And we saw it, every day when we go, I could see things were changing. I could see the soul. I could see the shine coming off. And next thing, you see sort of the company not doing well, and it was just going down. The sort of share price was going down, and it was really scary to watch that, when we had absolutely no control over it.
That's a real shame to see something that it's almost like a child, isn't it? You've given birth to this fabulous business, and somebody's adopted it and taken it on and leading it into areas it shouldn't be.
It was a sort of big corporate ego trip, and it wasn't, again, your focus was actually, at that time, it was a sort of fairly sexy company. It was like kind of, it was a new thing, and, acquiring other chains, for no reason. Not, again, taking the focus off what was essentially the crux of it. The North Star of it was the one client coming and getting a cappuccino every morning on the way to work. That's all you need to focus on. Yeah. Because if you focus on that one customer, by definition, you're focusing on the other customers. And it's just so easy. And people make it so complicated, David. And that's why I wrote Startup Forever. And that really is my passion.
Yeah.
Is that actually, it's not about the sort of zany stuff and the kind of football tables and dogs in the office and people wearing t-shirts or people working from home. It's really about taking back to that really easy experience of what it's like when a customer goes and gets a cappuccino. How perfect is that experience? How can we improve that experience? And that's kind of, everything else works itself out once you focus on that.
And an understanding as well. I think you've got some very interesting and very useful ideas about the definition of entrepreneurs, which we've touched on. Because one of the things that really irritates me, and I cannot watch a whole one, is The Apprentice. I can't watch the show because, and my wife thinks it's hilarious. My sister loves the show. It's like nails down a blackboard to me.
Yes, I feel that as well. Absolutely.
Because it's not real life. And I know it's a show, it's entertainment, and it's billed that way and it's created that way. But people watch that and think, oh, so that's how people are in business.
Yes, that's right. Or even Dragon's Den, that sort of idea of that one, that Dragon's Den is amusing to watch. And I think, but I think it might put some people off entrepreneurship because it's not actually like that. And leadership is not like that. And this is all, it's all much more human and much more instinctive. And startups are places where everyone sort of finds themselves. It's a really bizarre thing to say, but everyone's sort of tapping into everything they've got, and it's really, people perform at a much higher level because there's this level of commitment and there's a sort of soul to it, and that becomes the energy and the engine for everyone, and it's the most incredible atmosphere.
Yeah, because an entrepreneur is not somebody that necessarily is an individual is going to drive it all on their own, and people are going to have to do as they're told. You've got to take people with them on that journey.
Yeah,
it's going to be successful. You will have to buy into it.
And everyone's got to buy into it. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why I really believe companies going back to their startup roots or finding them, or and the easy thing is just go right back to the customer. Just try to spend as much time as you can with the customer, and everything comes from there. Every sort of disruption comes from there. It's just, disruption doesn't come from having a brainstorming session sitting in your office. Disruption comes from actually spending time in your customer, or being a customer, or play acting your customer.
Yeah. Just thinking about the where we are, it's been fantastic. We've been talking for 3 quarters now. We haven't talked about the pandemic. So I'm going to be Mr. Doom and Gloom. I'm not really, because hopefully we're seeing brighter times now. How do you think, if there is a difference at all, but do you think entrepreneurs are going to be behaving any differently? Do you think there's any advice that they need to take on board given the circumstances we've been through, or is it business as usual?
I think it's just business as usual. Just the kind of, I suppose the customer world has changed quite a lot. Our habits have changed. So again, the best way for people who've got a business currently and people starting a business, it's, be out there in the customer's world, because their habits have changed. We've all got much lazier about online shopping and looking at stuff online. And we're spending much more time at home looking at stuff rather than out. So it's just a question of, if you put yourself in the customer's shoes, then where it's going, and then you'll be able to solve their problem. So that's the only way. Is no one can sort of sit there with a kind of little ball guessing. It's just be out there in your customer's world and see what's different, and then make sure you're meeting those needs.
And there's obviously entrepreneurs, and there's people who would have started ventures, then the pandemic hits, then they started to think about what next. And one of the words, there's always these, every year there's words that appear, that emerge, that come out. And I think the one that we kept hearing a lot of was pivot. People were repurposing their business, redoing, I think. And great, fantastic, but again, it can become a bit of a catchphrase. What does it actually mean? What are you actually doing to your business? Are you turning it upside down? Are you turning it on its head? Or are you actually focusing on what that business can be doing now in the circumstances you find yourself?
Exactly. And pivot, exactly. It's got such a complicated word, but it's a bit like, what is innovation? Innovation for me is just finding a problem and solving it. And pivot is exactly that. It's like it's changing your business to solve the problem. And the issue is, do you know what the problem is? And you're not going to look at the problem looking at your numbers, because obviously that's too late. So the source of your problem is your customer behavior. And the only way to find what the problem is to try to put yourself as much as you can in your customer's shoes, to see why they're not buying, who else is selling to them, and where you could fill that gap yourself. So, pivot and innovation are all about finding your customer's problem and solving it, which is what people's businesses are. And so I just can't, it is bloody difficult time. I know a lot of businesses out there in major cities. A lot of businesses I mentor are the coffee bars and the sandwich bars and the pizza places in our city centers, which are actually frankly deserted. So gosh, everyone's got to, it will definitely help if people leave their homes and their gardens and get out to the office. But also for everyone to just have their pulse on the kind of where the zeitgeist of the customer is.
Yeah, keep that focus. And obviously the nature of your mind and your activities and the work that you do, you're never still. There's always something you're thinking or developing. What's the current project that you're focusing on? Is there something that's come out of the pandemic, or is there something that you've been thinking about, reflecting on?
Yeah, no, kind of what happened to me was last, lockdown before last in November, I saw a great tweet about female businesses, and the tweet was, we all talk about mentoring them or investing them, but not everyone can mentor or invest in women, but everyone can buy from them. And that was really the realization that COVID has hit women particularly hard, because at the end of the day, women are the default carers of, be it children or parents, and a lot of them have abandoned their businesses, and businesses are in the area that's been hardest hit around kind of beauty and things. So I kind of thought, actually, we need to sort of change the conversation now, and number one, redress this balance that COVID's created. And really, when we think about the economy, David, we're all thinking about recovery. Well, the kind of lowest hanging fruit of our economic recovery is if women started businesses at the same rate of men. That's another 200 billion to the UK economy.
That's a big number.
So that's easy, right? So like, why are women not starting, when I genuinely believe women make amazing entrepreneurs? Because women don't have confidence. So my new project, and thank you for saying that, is Buy Women Build, which is basically somehow increasing consumer awareness of how many businesses around us are started by women, to change the conversation, for us to put support behind female businesses, and not because the ones who are out there need it, but just when we support, we show others that it's possible, that women start amazing businesses, amazing brands, that women are behind some of the most disruptive brands around us. And it gives, the 8-year-old daughter something to, for them to feel that if they see it, they can be it, rather than the negative messages we have around women are not getting enough capital, or even the Me Too movement. I think it's got to be a bit more positive, that actually women make incredible entrepreneurs. If you're missing something in your life, it's the genesis business idea, and do it, because so many women are doing it, but we're just keeping it quiet.
Yeah. One of the things that I did during lockdown was a bit of stalking and investigative work, and using the Thomas Cook alumni and tracking down a manager, my second manager for my career, my 10-year career at Thomas Cook, a lady called Jackie Elliott, so that I could ring her and tell her she was the best boss I ever had.
How wonderful. Oh, really amazing.
And she was most embarrassed, and didn't really want to fit. I'm sure she did appreciate it, but it was an embarrassment.
Why was she such a great boss?
Sorry?
Why was she such a great boss?
I think it might have been because I had not such a good boss before, for the contrast. No, but she was everything that this other guy wasn't. She wasn't defensive. She didn't feel that she had anything to prove. She was confident in her own skin. She knew what she was doing, and she wanted to develop me as a marketer. And I think, born out of the fact that I also had an interest in it, the passion that we talked about, I felt, well, this is something that I really, if people in this trade, this sector, this area of work are like this, I want more of it.
Yeah.
Of course, there's all sorts of different people who work in marketing in different sectors, but she was the catalyst. She was if I hadn't met Jackie, if Jackie hadn't hired me, and if I hadn't worked for her for a brief period, as it was, for just over a year, I'm not sure where I would have been. So you look at these steps, and you're going, I thought, I need to tell her. I need to let her know. And on the podcast, we've had some fantastic entrepreneurs. And what concerns me, I know it's a statistic that has been published and is known, is that a lot of our young girls and boys can't point to or name a female entrepreneur.
That's right, absolutely.
Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Berners-Lee. You can reel them off. And actually, it was a podcast I did recently with the BBC's technology correspondent, Rory Ketton-Jones, and all the people he'd met in business. And there was one female, Martha Lane Fox, who came out of that list. And I thought, we need to address this, don't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we need to address it for the next generation, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I made a list, actually. That's kind of really the core of what I'm doing, is 160 businesses. They're all consumer facing. You find them in Sainsbury's, wherever, Ocado, wherever you go shopping, in train stations. And they're all most amazing businesses that we didn't know are female built. And the fact that we don't know means we're really missing a trick. You know, kind of, and so it absolutely, by publicizing them as female built businesses, it's nothing against male built businesses. It's just that we're missing a trick by not saying that there's a woman behind this business.
And how can people get involved with this project? I know it's in its very early stages, but is there a way in which they can?
Dave, I'm going to get you was maybe kind of, I suppose, subscribe to us or follow us on social media, but hopefully come September, I'll be launching it, because it's such a passion. I believe this is really kind of the future, is promoting women. It just seems to be like the one, you know, we're just missing this, because our rates of entrepreneurship, would you believe, are almost half that of America. Rates of female entrepreneurship, 6% of women in the UK start a business, 11% in America, 15% in Canada, 9% in the Netherlands. So we're behind, and we shouldn't be behind.
And people generally want to get hold of you. It's saharhashemi.com.
Yes, sorry, I'm gonna have to put that one because I'm too distant. Exactly. At Sahar Hashemi OBE on Instagram, Twitter, yeah, LinkedIn, whatever. Yes.
We'll put all the contact details in the show notes. One final question. You've been very generous with your time, and it's really appreciated, Sahar. But what I would like to know, if you've got one, this is the classic question, one tip, bit of advice, guidance for entrepreneurs, and maybe let's focus on, we're talking about women, let's, you know, young women that maybe have an idea but perhaps feeling they haven't got the confidence, they can't quite make that step to achieve that goal, that maybe one day they'd run their own business. What would you say to them?
I suppose my one tip is my motto, which I'm becoming known for, and that's leap and the net will appear.
Right, right.
You know, it's very scary. A lot of us spend a lot of time on that kind of cliff edge, looking down, thinking, should we go for it? You know, but the power of actually taking that jump, taking that leap, because once you take the jump, then you find your way, kind of thing. But then looking at it, contemplating, asking people is the worst thing to do. So just take the jump, and the net will be there.
Fabulous. I also know that your father had a phrase that he used to say to you, do your best. I think he'd be very proud. I know he'd be very proud, because you definitely are doing your best and continue to do so. Sahar, it's been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed it. A lot that can be taken away from this from the listeners.
Thank you.
And we thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. You're a great interviewer.
Thank you. I'm definitely keeping that in.